Let's start off this episode right with some E46 M3 GTR race car action. Starting up, we got some legitimate M3 GTR onboard footage. Gotta love that P60 B40 engine. The following clip is of a car built by Fletcher-made horsepower with an S65 B40 with a 4.4 stroker. It's sequentially shifted and it's amazing. It is cross-plane, but it's still amazing. Have a listen. Fun fact, that's not a street chassis. That's actually one of the real E46 M3 BMW Motorsport race car chassis. But let's begin with the first segment of the show. Lots of new cars have been announced, revealed, have already been put into the market in production, however you want to put it. Lots of cool stuff is happening, and some automotive manufacturers have not decided to cut their balls off and start making a whole bunch of electric vehicles. So let's talk about some of the cool cars that are still being made today. Let's start off with, we got to talk about it, the Ford Mustang GTD. The S650 generation is a little bit of a, let's go with a divisive generation because it really moves away from retro designs. It's much more modern, and it's made to compete with European sports cars now. The GTD being the purest manifestation of that objective, and I think they're going to come very close, if not definitely succeed. Like the S650, we'll talk about that later, but the GTD, which, as far as I understand it, is a road-going version of their race car that they're using in the GTD class, racing class in the IMSA series, a racing series I have talked about in the past. GTD stands for, I think it's Grand Touring Daytona, something like that. And GTD does not mean diesel. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's a Volkswagen diesel. No, this is a, this could be a supercar wearing the skin of a Ford Mustang. But let me look up the stats rather than I just try and rattle it all off from memory, because the Ford Mustang GTD, it's got some cool tech. Ford calls it the performance supercar. Obviously, you've got the insane, GT racing, inspired exterior. I think it looks absolutely amazing. More manufacturers need to be building cars like this that look like this from the factory, because then you never feel compelled to really modify them. Because this is what we want anyways. It looks amazing. And it's all functional. It's gorgeous. I love it. It's like the GT3 RS. And we've got to compare it to that, because I think that's the main competitor of this car. Let me explain. Full carbon fiber body. Magnesium wheels, amazing suspension technology. It's got a 5.2 liter supercharged V8, I'm assuming derived from either the Predator V8 in the S550 GT500 or even just the Coyote engine in the standard Mustang GT. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to stroke those to 5.2 liters. In fact, Ford sells the Illuminator crate engine, which is a 5.2 liter displacement Coyote crate motor rated for over, I think it's 560 horsepower, NA, something like that. It's basically using parts from the Voodoo motor, but it's got the cross-plane crankshaft, as far as I understand it. But this could be based off of the Predator engine, which is also very, very stout. And now, the first thing people are going to see typically is the way it looks, the price tag, which is $300,000. No slouch in terms of price tags for a Ford Mustang. A lot of people are going to say, 300 grand for a Ford Mustang? This thing genetically shares very little with a standard Mustang. I'm going to say that right now. It's got all kinds of cool stuff. My favorite detail being the transaxle transmission. It's an 8-speed dual clutch, and transaxle basically means that the transmission is in the back along with the differential, all kind of mixed together, a lot like a Ferrari, for instance, unlike an F12 or something like that. Transaxles are used on a lot of stuff, but having that in a Mustang with an 8-speed dual clutch, the end result is obviously amazingly fast shifts. I think the idea of having a dual clutch in a Mustang is really cool. Ever since the GT500 came out with that DCT, I thought, you know what, that's a great idea. We should be seeing more of that. So that transaxle 8-speed dual clutch in the GTD leads to a 50-50 weight distribution in a Mustang. This car, they're going for, I think it's a sub 7 minute Nürburgring time. Yeah, sub 7 minute Nürburgring lap time. That's moving, you guys. They're going after not just anyone, but the kings of the Nürburgring. Porsche, with their crazy GT2 RS records. That's not an easy thing to accomplish, but they're going for it, and they're using the right technology. But now here's an interesting question I want to ask you guys. Ford is marketing this Mustang GTD, a Mustang, as a supercar. The Mustang has graduated from muscle car to sports car to competent sports car to now possibly a supercar. Is a world where we can consider a Mustang a supercar possible? Is that something we can even comprehend? Am I just going to stare into the face of Cthulhu and have my brain melt? I'm thinking maybe. I think maybe the Mustang GTD is a proper supercar. Now here's my argument. No one in their right mind would call a base Porsche 911 Carrera a supercar. It doesn't have the horsepower, it doesn't have the performance, doesn't have the price tag, doesn't have any of that. Well, actually, a base Porsche is pretty expensive, but that's just kind of weird. But the point is, a 911 GT3 RS and a 911 GT2 RS have all been, labeled by enthusiasts as supercars and exotics, which makes sense. They are very capable machines. However, their lower trim counterparts most definitely are not supercars. Now, the Mustang GT, the GT500, the EcoBoost, those aren't supercars. But if we're following the same logic as Porsche, where the 911 GT3 RS is a supercar, even though the lower trim models aren't, if we're following the same kind of logic, I think the GTD can be a supercar. I don't know, you guys can argue about that in the comments. But kind of moving on to expensive American sports cars, which have also unfortunately been discontinued because the world is ending. If you want the functionality and performance of a modern Hellcat Challenger, but you want the real retro looks of an old Charger without all of the flukiness that you get from having an old rusty steel body Charger, I actually have an option for you, as long as you've got anywhere between $330,000 and $380,000. The company Exomod has designed an exterior conversion package that can be applied to Challenger Hellcats, Red Eyes, and the Hennessy Challenger Hellcats, or whatever they're referring to. They will do a full carbon body exterior package conversion that looks like a perfect one-to-one replica of a 60s, 70 Dodge Charger. But you still get the nice modern interior, the nice modern transmission, that Hellcat Hemi V8 with anywhere between 700 to 1,000 horsepower, depending on what package you get through Exomod. And I think it's actually a really cool idea. And normally stuff like this, replicas and kit cars and things like that, I'm kind of always a little about stuff like that. There's very rare cases where I'm cool with that sort of thing. But this is so well executed and looks so good, and actually makes the Hellcat or above trim models lighter, because they cut off the whole body and just stitch on and attach this carbon exterior. It saves weight. Now, granted, it is $300,000 to basically $400,000 to buy, but it's super cool looking. And I personally would want one in Furious Fuchsia, because they made those limited production Furious Fuchsia Challenger RTs when they first came out with the new Challenger. They never put that color on any of the Hellcats, even though I actually really like that color, which is kind of unusual for me. So I think I would want that color on one of these. Either that or just exposed carbon fiber with a clear coat over it. Something like that. That would also be pretty cool.